In 3, 2, 1, Keith. That voice at Gen Con, what'd you think about that?
I loved it. It was great. It was just killing me because I was like, I know that voice. I've heard it before. Where was it from? And I think me and Josh were talking about it.
Lily, what about Keith's voice? I think Keith's voice was way more sexy than mine.
I think it was very sexy, to be honest. But, I mean, that's why, when you choose a person to ride around on the back of for an entire game, like, you probably go with the one with the sexiest voice.
Yeah.
So tonight, we are accompanied by the very, very, very talented Lily, just a little nerd.
So many berries.
And of course, we got Keith with us once again. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
I'm tired, but great. I'm very stoked to be here in my own apartment, but on this podcast.
Perfect. Keith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good, man. It's Sunday fun day. Got a little bit of the Sunday scaries before work tomorrow, but it's okay. We're gonna.
Oh yeah.
But anyways.
I know that feel.
So, what we were just referring to, but first and foremost, like I said, welcome to the show, episode number 8 with Lily here. But what we were just referring to was we did a little one-shot at Gen Con this year. It's actually DM'd by a member of Keith's regular group named Josh. He's a voice actor, a very talented guy, did an absolutely incredible job. But we were also accompanied by a couple of the people. We had Jordan, the PH is silent. He does the Forgotten Realm lore stuff on YouTube. Just some absolutely incredible content. But we ended up filming the session, and it was a lot of fun. One of these days, I'm going to stream it on Twitch. However, just have not had enough time lately. So I will eventually get to that, I promise.
Can't wait.
But nonetheless, so got a couple interesting things tonight. So Lily, you have a incredibly popular Instagram page. You've done a lot of stuff. So first and foremost, where did this all start for you? Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah, everything.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, it's kind of a two-part question. Where did it all start? My social media presence actually started in the cannabis industry because that's where I was working for the past 3 years. I live in Canada. It's fully legal. Don't at me. I also traveled to many states where it was fully legal. So, don't at me. Weed is weed. It's great. But I had been working in the cannabis industry for 3 years, and honestly, it was getting a little slow because I was working with a corporation. And things were just not fitting with the way that I wanted to live my life. And honestly, I was kind of depressed for a bit of last year. And so when I started getting that depression, my therapist recommended hey, instead of just trolling Tinder and meeting a bunch of terrible people, why don't you have a hobby where you meet actual people? And I was like, wow, that is an amazing idea. So I downloaded this app called Meetup, which is an app where you can find social gatherings and do social things. And one of the things I saw was Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, man, I really love that game. The one time I played it in high school before all my stoner friends bailed out on me, I'm going to try this again. And I did. And so I signed up for a meetup that week. I went and played a D&D game the next day. And then after that game, I then immediately signed up for 4 more games that week. And then since then, which was in November last year, I've been playing on average 4 games a week. Wow. Playing or running 4 games a week. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Toronto, there's a lot of people here, so I'm very fortunate to be able to get to play that much, both online and in real life. So that's basically where my D&D obsession started. And then I was just like, hey, there's not a ton of Asian girls playing D&D, so maybe I'll just make this. Yeah, which is actually, it is surprising because my very first real life D&D game, there were 2 other Asian girls there. And I was like, yes, I found my calling. These are my people. And then never again had a game with 2 other Asian girls in it. But beside the point, although I guess all of my Roll for Damage streams have 2 of them because it's me and Maxine. Anyways, regardless, that was where it all started. And then I I started putting myself out on Instagram and all that goodness because I was just like, hey, my weed content is super boring. How many times do people want to watch me smoke a joint? Not that many, I don't think, but maybe. I don't know. Either way, it just wasn't like doing it for me anymore. And I just really wanted to take pictures of dice. And now that's what you will mostly find on my page.
So you're actually pretty new to D&D, other than the one time you played in high school.
Yeah. I'm like brand spanking new. I started playing in November. I started DMing in December, and then I started my quest for D&D fame in February when I quit my job.
Solid.
Wow. So what got you into DMing? What made you want to take that step into DMing right off the bat?
Well,
you went to it quick.
Yeah, I definitely really wanted to DM. Like from the very first game that I played, I wanted to do this because when I was a kid, my dream was to be a fantasy author. I really wanted to publish a fantasy novel, and that was everything that I wanted to do in the world. And when I started playing D&D, I was actually part of a few writers groups for fantasy writing. And I was immediately like, whoa, I could take my fantasy writing and just incorporate it into this game. And instead of waiting like 10 years to write like 5 manuscripts to get possibly published, but probably never published and deal with like all that rejection, I can just get this instant gratification of throwing all of these people into this world and seeing what they get up to. And that just seemed a lot better. So I just wanted to start DMing right away. And I did, basically.
And luckily, that's what's really cool, too, about this day and age is that you can get that instant gratification if you really want it. I mean, with Twitch, with Roll20, with streaming, with social media, if you got something that you want to throw out to the masses and see if they like it, then you can. And it's kind of a catch-22 because they may love it or they may hate it and rip you to shreds and make you want to go hide in your closet. Because that has happened to me before.
Aww.
But luckily it wasn't. It was like my very first module I ever wrote. I put it on like a little subreddit thing, and people were like, "Wow, this is not that great." It's like,
Ooh, but
I'll tell you, Reddit can be brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
And they like it, there was the one other time I did it, I made this cool little like Excel tracker for calculating combat difficulty for your party, and then the first comment, not like 30 seconds after I posted it, they're like, dude, there's a website for this. And they sent me a link, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. And I had spent like 3 hours making this thing, and I was so pissed. And then, of course, D&D Beyond came out with their alpha or their encounter builder and just shat on all my dreams. So, whatever, such is life.
Oh, Cam. I will say I used that encounter builder today, and it was really good.
Yeah,
no
right?
offense to you.
It does help. It does help.
Yeah.
So, did you DM in today's game that you were in?
Yeah, so I'm out here in Toronto, Canada, and we had the exhibition, which is our big, I don't know what they're called, carnivals? Is that what the word is? Anyways, so I was DMing a game there. It was very fun. And then I'm going to be DMing with the same group next week at Fan Expo, which is one of our nerd conventions.
That's awesome. That's where you live?
Toronto, yeah.
Okay.
Canadian.
Nice. So I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about your podcast, Roll for Damage, your Twitch stream.
Yeah, so, cool. I love to talk about that. Yeah, Roll for Damage.
Damage.
So kind of give us a rundown as to first what the heck that even is.
Yeah, so Roll for Damage is a Twitch stream that I'm running. We're still working on like what our tagline is because people get very offended when we say we're an all-inclusive group of female players, but then they're like, oh, you're so exclusive because you're only women. And I'm like, it's just that my cast is women because that's the group that we had, but it's not like we're being like, boys aren't allowed to play at our table. Like, we don't like them. So I'm working on the tagline, but essentially it is me and a group of my girlfriends, and we are running in this world that I homebrewed called the Avarian Forest. It's got a lot of high fantasy elements, a lot of politics, and we are now on episode, I think, 7. We just started streaming weekly, which is cool. And it's going really crazy well, which is awesome. We do get the trolls that are like, nah, all girls, what is this? But we also get a ton of people who are very excited about what we're doing. And my favorite part about it is the women who reach out to us who are like, man, I saw your stream and I never knew what D&D was, but watching you guys play it makes me want to play it. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great that you do that. I mean, you know, I jumped on the other night. I was able to check it out for a little bit. And I think it's great that it's all women. I mean, and it doesn't really matter because I didn't sit there and watch it the whole time thinking, oh, it's all women. It's just, it was a D&D stream, you know, and
you were thinking was you should TPK that party.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did root for that a couple of times, but that was all in good fun. But yeah, it was actually, it's quality, you know, I liked it. I had a good time. I didn't get to stay on for very long, maybe 30, 40 minutes, but I enjoyed it.
Oh, that's a lot longer than I thought you were watching for. So, oh my God, I'm so flattered. Wow.
I was trolling.
So, Lily, being a woman in the D&D industry, not being a woman, but being a dungeon master and also being an icon on social media, what are some of the things, the challenges or the internal struggles that you faced when you first got into this realm?
Well, honestly, I didn't face a lot of struggles when I first started out because I'm very, very, very lucky in that, again, I live in Toronto. So when I started playing D&D with groups, they were already super inclusive because those are the communities that we've built up because we are such a metropolitan, vibrant city with all kinds of different ethnicities and sexual orientations and just all kinds of stuff we got going on here. So there was never a moment where I felt particularly uncomfortable at a table. There was never a time when I had a bad DM who didn't understand any of that inclusivity. Definitely when I went to Gen Con was the first time that it wasn't even like a struggle so much, but that was the first time when I felt insecure as a female DM because suddenly I was playing, like I ran 20 games over 4 days at Gen Con so that I could get a hotel room. And it was great. Harold's Guild, thank you so much. Baldwin Games, awesome group. But this was the first time where I was being exposed to DMing for a lot of people who didn't know what an X card was, had never really like had to define what their pronouns were on a card, just small things like that that were very, you know, common for me and how I had been trained to DM, but I had then had to explain to new people. And then I definitely had some people at the tables who, when they first approached and saw me sitting there as the DM, like, I could tell, you know, like there are these guys who had been playing for like 30, 40 years and all of a sudden, yeah, there's like this young, spunky, like relatively pretty little girl here who's like about to run a game for them, and I could tell they were kind of like, what is this game going to be? And like I had a lot of people right away asking me, and so how long have you been DMing for? To which I had to very awkwardly say 3 months or like however long it had been, 7 months or whatever. And then they'd be like, oh wow, you're really new, I've been playing for like 40 years. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I hope you enjoy my game, and I still hope that they enjoyed my game. But there was definitely some times where I had some very mechanics-based players that tried to like put me under the table, and I was like, this is my table. Sorry,
Charlie. For the people out there that don't know, what is an X card?
Oh, for the people out there who don't know what an X card is, it is a great mechanic that I always recommend having at the table, especially if it's a table of maybe people who don't all know each other yet, but even sometimes it can come in handy. So it's you don't even have to have a physical card, but I do, where you just draw an X on it, and it's a physical safe word, essentially. So if there's ever anything in that during the game that you feel uncomfortable with, and I've even had people X card things like, my friend can't, like, I can't see colors, so please don't point out like different color tokens to me, or like I can't stand the sound of vomiting or whatever. But they're just these like small ticks that you don't necessarily know that your players have. So they would just touch the X card, or they make an X motion with their hands, and you just move on. You don't have to ask questions or know why somebody pulled an X card. Of course, people generally tell me afterwards or during, but you don't have to at all. And the play will just continue with and move past whatever had been happening at that time. So it's a really great way for players to communicate to their DM, I'm not feeling this moment right now, and this could potentially be triggering. Exactly. Like, let's just move on, and that's it. It's nice, clean, simple, and I highly encourage people use it and normalize it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like it would be really good, especially when you play in that situation like at Gen Con when you've never met the people before. So I can see where that can come in handy.
Or any convention or adventures, like things like that, where you're playing with strangers regularly.
Yeah, even like playing with friends sometimes, because there are just some things that you don't normally find out about people. Like, that's why I always call to mind the vomiting trigger one, because I was just friends with a person, had no idea they had this thing, but they told me after they pulled that X card, they were like, I have a really bad trigger for like sounds of vomiting, retching, like anything like that, descriptions of it, like I can't stand it. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's, no problem whatsoever. I will make sure to not include that in my games with you from now on. And it's just, it can open up a conversation, or it could just indicate like, hey, I'm not feeling too good. And, sometimes we all need that.
Yeah. And that's, Keith, we've talked about this before with It's Amendment Guys, the session zeros, where essentially you say, hey, what's off limits? What are you guys not comfortable with? What are you comfortable with? And I remember one that stuck out that they mentioned was they had somebody that was uncomfortable with teeth. So anything teeth was just like, nope, don't do that.
The toothy maw.
The toothy maw. No critical role for them. Matthew loves those toothy maws.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and one of the things that I like most about it as well is that it also doesn't necessarily have to lead into that conversation. Because sometimes in a session zero, you go around the table, but there are some things that people don't necessarily want to say out loud, Like, I would never go into a session zero, and trigger warning, but I would never go into a session zero and be like, hey, guys, please don't describe me being raped. Because I have heard stories of girls that have gone to tables and, like, had session zeros with DMs and talked about, like, like, please don't misgender my character, or like something simple like that. But then when it came around to gameplay, the DM would avoid all those things. But then there would be really graphic things like sexual assault. And I was appalled that there was no like safety mechanism for someone to get out of that. Because like you just don't think that you have to say like, please don't describe that. So the X card in that situation, and also in much milder situations, can be very useful, because it's just like a tap it, move on, and we don't have to talk about it or say anything out loud.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of on that topic. A lot of people, myself included, that play D&D, we play it as an outlet. We want to get away, not necessarily get away, but we play this to embody something that we really enjoy. The last thing we want is to bring something out that we're really not comfortable with into our safe space. And so I can't agree with you more on how important that really is.
Safe spaces, yay.
Exactly. So kind of backtracking a little bit. So I know whenever Keith and I, whenever we first decided to do this whole podcast thing and record it and throw it up on Twitch, I was nervous as hell, and every single insecurity within my soul was telling me, no, you can't do this. You're stupid. Forget it. And then all of this stuff with the technology issues we had in the beginning, like everything was just pointing to like, nope, you can't do this. What are you even thinking about doing? And I personally had a really big struggle with starting all of this, the Instagram, the Twitch, everything. What are some insecurities that you had, if you care to share about them, whenever you stepped into streaming a Dungeons & Dragons game? Because that's something very close and very personal. It's easy to hop on here and do a podcast, but it's another thing to expose yourself up to that safe space that you share with your friends.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I was actually speaking to some people about this earlier this week on another panel, and I have a very unique story, I think, in that I got very lucky right away. When I first decided to do Roll for Damage with my partner, Jess, who's the other executive producer of the show, we happened to just have an amazing player, Amanda, who was friends with a producer who could take care of all of the tech stuff. So our producer is Can We Play Already? His name is Ben. He's a great guy. He sets up all of our cameras, our audio, our lighting.
Shut up, Ben.
Yeah, shout out Ben. But so we got really lucky in that sense. So I didn't have to worry about all of the tech side. So I didn't have any of those insecurities. Definitely my insecurities went more into the range of, am I a good enough DM to do this? Because back in the early days, super early days in like February, I actually had a small stream going with the Lucky Rogue. Shout out the Lucky Rogue, my girl. But we were just doing it like, at home setting up cameras and lighting, and I had no idea how to use Twitch. I had no idea how to do Twitch overlays. Honestly, the stream did not look great, and we would get like 2 viewers, and I also was much less experienced DMing at that point, and the story just kind of fell apart. I felt like my players were still having a good time, which is the important part, but I felt like I wasn't able to wrangle in all of those story threads together and make it a cohesive campaign. So I was really worried, and I still am constantly worried that my story is just going to fall apart. And I definitely have a lot of insecurities around like mechanics, because I am probably like, I don't know, like the least logical person in the world. So I'm very left-brained and creative and like that fantasy world. But then as soon as it comes to like, hey, can you add 23 and 14 together on a stream? Yeah, I'm like, okay, so you did 23 damage plus 14, carry the 1. And it's like those gifs of like math people with all the numbers flying around.
Seeing the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that I totally feel the insecurities on, and I'm always worried that somebody in chat is going to be like, hey, that was a Flint that was like CR9, and that should have TPK'd the party.
People don't really actually comment like that, though.
No, they don't.
That would be.
But yeah, things like that. So that would definitely be my insecurity, but also I have very few insecurities, like actually. So I'm kind of special in that way as well.
Bravo. Can I borrow some of that?
I do get insecure about social media, though. That is hard when you're like basing your life off of numbers on Instagram, and you're like, damn it, I posted a giveaway that ends when I have 8,000 followers, and I'm gonna take forever to get to 8,000 followers. So that's
a weird thing, right? So we all play D&D because it's a safe space. It's what we want to do. It's kind of escapism in its most heroic form, is what I've come to coin it as, kind of. But yet here we are, we post this content on social media for the internet to rip to shreds, and we do it because we love it. And it's kind of this weird cycle of, we do it because we love it, but you also want to get those followings or those likes. You want to build those followers. And it's kind of like what did I do wrong with this post? Like I put a lot into it. It didn't get as much love as I thought. And so Keith and I literally were just talking about this before you hopped on. It's finding that balance, and the biggest thing that I have come to accept with what I do is remembering the reason I started this page and what I got into this for. I, followed a bunch of D&D pages on my personal Instagram, was messaging all these people like Keith, and just wanted to share stuff, but I just didn't have the courage to do it on my own personal page, whether for judgment or whatever. And I just decided one day, hell with it. Let's just create my own page. And at first I was doing content that didn't have my face on it. And then I realized, hell with that. Let's just be yourself. Put it out there and see if people enjoy it. And it just kind of cultivated this community around, not only people loving the content you produce, but also loving you as a person. And then so whenever you post things about there, like this week on Thursday, I had one of the worst weeks of my life in my professional career. And I posted it on my story, and I said, this is the worst week of my professional career. However, I get to play some Dungeons & Dragons tonight with my friend. I get a DM for the first time in 3 weeks again with my regular weekly campaign, so I'm so excited. And I put my phone away and had the session and didn't look at my phone until the next morning, and literally had the best D&D session in my entire life. And when I looked at my phone, I had 10 people message me saying, hey, I'm so sorry that happened. I had a fun week too, but I hope you have fun playing D&D tonight. And so it's things like that you realize, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I started this. It's all about community.
Absolutely. I'm a huge community person, as you'll learn if we talk about my Discord server later, but I had the exact same hesitations when I switched my page from a weed page to my D&D page, because originally it was still all of my weed content, and then I'd throw a dice pick in there and they would perform like garbage. because my audience was all weeb people who didn't care about dice. And it was a lot of conversations with Lucky and her being like, just do it, make a D&D page, just switch your page. And I was like, Lucky, I don't know, the engagement's going to be so bad. And she was like, do it. And then I did. And now I'm very grateful that I did, because I got to meet you amazing people and other amazing people. So sometimes you just got to take that plunge, you know?
Yeah. And Cameron, you hit it on the head, because it is, we did start this stuff because we enjoy doing it, and you do start to look at the numbers, but then you have to sit back and think, like we spoke before we started this tonight, that you just got to continue doing it because you love it, and do it because you enjoy it, and stop worrying about all that stuff. Because I got to the point where I was sitting there looking at numbers, and then I got to the point where I don't care. I'm going to continue doing the page and post the stuff that I enjoy posting and sharing, and just engage with the community, because you're going to meet people like Cameron and stuff where I build that big relationship with. And that's really the important part of it. Not 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 followers, but I'd rather have the 5 close personal relationships I made than anything like that.
Yeah. And fun fact, whenever I first started following Keith way back, he had like 900 followers, and I reached out to him. We would talk regularly.
Yeah.
Just like, respond to stories and stuff. Like, dude, that's so cool. What's this? And you'd take the time to talk to me and help me out. And then whenever I started my page, we've had this conversation before. When I started my page, I messaged you, and I was like, this guy's got no idea who the hell I am. And then you did, and you followed me back, and it was like the day that I realized that this was meant for me.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
And then we got to go to Gen Con together and play some awesome D&D. Had a great time, and none of that would have ever happened if it wasn't for this weird little role-playing game that we all gather around.
Right.
If we hadn't put ourselves out there looking for these opportunities. I got roped into all of this because Keith shouted me out in a story. I was very, very lucky to get. So it's really cool the way that you connect with, and like I became friends with Lucky literally through Instagram stalking her. Like I saw her photos, was like, this girl's so cool and nerdy, I want to be her friend. And then I joined her Discord server, and then basically just was as witty as possible until she noticed me, and then stalked her a little bit more, and then we became friends.
So let's chat about that for a minute. So what's this? You're talking about the Axis Tavern, right? So I'm actually on. Excuse me, I got a little fuzz in my throat.
That's okay.
So I think I actually joined that Discord a long time ago. However, I am awful at checking in on things like that. So what is that all about? Tell us about the Axis Discord channel.
Not to interrupt, but she probably kicked you off, Cameron, like she kicked me off originally.
That's what you need to clean up, okay? Sometimes there's riffraff that don't do anything.
We got booted.
I'm just
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We only did one prune because we were revamping the server. Anyways, so Axis Tavern is a Discord community. Discord is a chat app for gamers. All kinds of gaming people use it for things, but we use it for D&D. I have about 500 people in there now, and we do regular giveaways. We have daily discussions. We have a ton of super nice people. We run online games, not just D&D. I ran Masks on Friday, so that was super fun. We have text-based RP. And the way that I see the lore of the Discord server, because it's called Axis Tavern, is that Axis Tavern is a tavern that sits in the center of all of the multiverse. So it's filled with portals, and adventurers pop in and out of the tavern in between their D&D sessions, in between their daily lives, just like a normal tavern. It's the meeting spot. And there's also, we're starting to branch out into cross-promoting with other servers and streams and that kind of thing. So not only can you portal into the tavern and hang out, you can portal out and find new places, new creators, new servers, new friends. Because I saw a need in the D&D community, not to sound snobby, but I've worked in social media and digital marketing for a while, and I see a lot of D&D pages really struggle with getting that networking and that connection, but I also see a lot of amazing sellers and creators and people who should have that attention but don't necessarily know how to social media as much. So I wanted to have this place where all of these people could connect and find each other and find new games and find games that they actually wanted to be a part of, instead of just jumping into random like LFG posts from the D&D Beyond Discord server. That place made me sad looking at that channel. Like so many people, hundreds of people posting in that, just searching for a group and a game. And I just wanted to connect people in a little bit more personal of a way. So that's what I did with my server.
To credit the D&D Beyond forum that you're referencing, I actually have found two of my regular players from that forum, and
that's amazing.
It's I see like the pros and the cons to it, but what I will say is that if you are looking for a regular group, Discord, that is a great way to find it. But D&D Beyond, the reach that they have with Critical Role and everything, that is another, especially if you do live in kind of like a metropolitan area, that is a great way to look for groups, even if it's like if you're looking for local groups. But obviously, if you're ever looking for like an online group or things like that, that's not necessarily my area of expertise. But Lily, I know you do a lot of online games, correct?
Yeah, I do.
So what would be your advice for having somebody that maybe wants to start like a Roll20 group? How would you suggest they go about finding people to play with for that?
So I think that I have no hate for D&D Beyond whatsoever. I love everything that they're doing. The thing that I noticed, I'm not so much talking about their forum, but in their Discord server, they have a channel called Looking for Game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's specifically what I was referencing, was that one channel, and it's a little forum, and you just post in all of your information, and it just goes up. I was connected to 4 groups because of that, because I posted that I was a DM, and of course DMs are a hot commodity all the time, and I just landed in these 4 groups, and I started running for them just because they needed a DM, and quickly realized that if you just sign up to run 4 groups and you don't know anything about these people, it's might just fall apart because you just don't vibe. Yeah, you need to vibe. You need to vibe, and you need to really want to play with the people that you're playing with. Otherwise, that's how you get games that fall apart, because people don't want to commit because they're just not having that good of a time. And it's nothing against other players. It's nothing against a DM. It's just that you didn't have that initial chemistry. So if you're looking for an online game, the way that we do it in Axis is we have a lot of text RP, so that way you can start to get a vibe for the way people role play. And I would also just recommend chatting to people first before committing to a game, because especially if you're committing to a campaign, that's a big commitment. It's a lot of time, and somebody else is going to put a lot of time into designing that campaign. And if you're not feeling it, then unfortunately, it's just probably not going to work out. So another one of the things that I really like about our system in the tavern right now is that we do primarily one-shots. That way you play with a bunch of different DMs, you play with a bunch of different players, and we have feedback forums all the time so that we can start to group people together that actually want to be together. And we have had a lot of players that played in one-shots with other people, started really enjoying those people, and then created groups with them because they knew that they had played in a game already. And it's the same thing, honestly, with my local Toronto D&D community. We run, I think, 4 one-shot nights every month. So that way you can try out new characters, you can try out new races, but more importantly, you can get to know other players and DMs and their styles, and then hopefully at some point walk away with an idea of the people that you actually want to play with and get a group together.
Yeah. What do you prefer personally? Do you like the one-shot style, playing with new people every time, or do you really like the consistent campaigns?
Oh, that's so hard to choose. I love both, honestly. I love both. They're so different. So I love one-shots. I especially love, I will say more than I love one-shots and more than I love campaigns is I love one-shots for brand new players because they are hilarious. They always want to punch something in the face. Every single time I run a one-shot for a brand new player, they're like, I drop my 1d12 great axe and I punch it in the face. And I'm like, you're only going to do 4 damage. And they're like, I don't care. I'm going to punch it in the face. And I'm like, I love this.
Because you can.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great. So yeah, I will say like one shots I really love because I get to try out new things. You get to just be like, yeah, I don't care if you pick up a cloak of invisibility. I don't have to worry about the consequences of that in later games. Like, do whatever you want. It's hilarious. But I also do love building my persistent world, especially the one that I do for Roll for Damage, because it's like, wow, I have a world.
A universe.
Yeah, a universe. And even the like very small bits of world building that I do for Axis Tavern is just like really cool to have people be able to reference NPCs as like in the Roll for Damage stream, we had a giveaway where a fan designed an NPC in our world, and now that NPC is the favorite NPC of like everyone of all time, and it's really cool that I can just keep bringing Monty back, and Monty can just show up and do other stuff. So I like the character development of campaigns, but I love the silliness of one-shots is my short answer.
Yeah. And I would definitely say, especially with D&D becoming more mainstream and more, I don't want to say acceptable, but people, like I would say ordinary people, and you made a reference to normalization of D&D, they've now they're hearing about it and they're like, yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, what's that all about? Like, can we play that sometime?
Yeah.
And now you're getting this like mix of normal everyday people that want to do it, doctors, lawyers, all these other people that have never played a role-playing game and really may never even played a whole lot of board games. Now they submerge themselves in this fantasy role-playing, high fantasy role-playing realm. And it's absolutely awesome to see some of the funny, quirky ideas that come out of it. And I'm sure you've seen a ton of it, as you said, just from playing a whole lot of one-shots and things like that, which that's absolutely awesome.
It's really great. I enjoy roping as many people as I can into D&D, especially people who have never played it before or have no idea what it is. It's the best.
Yeah. So what would you say about somebody that's newer to D&D and they may have watched a couple of streams or they've seen these incredibly talented people do the voices and things like that? What would you say for somebody that maybe isn't comfortable with role-playing or voice acting or doing a quirky little voice? What would be your biggest piece of advice to tell them?
My biggest advice for those people, I think, is it really boils down to the person. And I think this kind of falls into two categories. One side would be people who are insecure about doing voices and role-playing a bit heavier. And the other side I would see as people who just don't want to and who have no interest in that side of the game. For the people who have no interest in that side of the game, I'm like, dude, read some books. Like, there are a ton of great podcasts, blogs, vlogs.
Hundreds, thousands.
These guys, these two guys that I'm on podcast with right now, like, there's so many mechanical people out there that you can just gorge yourself on numbers and min-maxing, like, forever. So, like, no problem with that. For the people who are insecure about like trying out voice acting and role playing and being a bit more like forward at the table, what I always recommend is, especially for new players, when I'm getting them into the sense of their characters, because I'm not going to lie, I try to brainwash everyone into role playing because I think it's the funnest part of the game. Is I'm just like, hey, you have like an elven ranger here. Can you think of like a character in a movie or a TV show or a book that you would want to base your character off of? And then they'll say something, like, oh, Legolas from Lord of the Rings, or like they will say something completely random, like Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy, who is not a ranger or an elf, but like they just have a character that they want to be, and then I'll just be like, do their voice. You make decisions based off of what decisions they would make. And you don't have to stick to that character 100%, but that will give you a baseline for voice play and acting because you already know what their voice sounds like, especially if it's a TV or a movie character.
Right.
And then you can also then build your motivations off of theirs. It's like, would Gamora stab Thanos in the eye? We don't know. That was someone who tormented for a while, but it's like, it adds more context for players who are brand new. And I think that makes it a little easier.
Yeah. And another thing, too, that I think people are a little nervous about trying voices out, they want to do a Scottish accent, but they don't know if it's that great. Hey, newsflash. Scotland does not exist in the Forgotten Realms.
Yes.
So if somebody says your Scottish accent is shit, tell them to fuck off because you're not doing a Scottish accent, you're doing your accent.
I say that all the time.
So you're all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. I do that shit all the time.
Yeah.
I make a fool out of myself. I switch up accents. I maybe saying things wrong, mix around NPCs, but guess what? That's totally fine because what your players will appreciate more than you having a consistent accent for a certain NPC is you being in character and you embodying that NPC. Because at the end of the day,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because at the end of the day, that's what people really enjoy. That's what makes it real.
Sorry, I got really excited because as soon as you said that, and I was like, and also because you're like passionate and excited enough to try a voice, like that's really exciting. The first DM I ever had, like I love Tim. Tim's a great guy, but shout out Tim. He just did. Like, he would just read the book. He would be like, okay, so you guys meet a wizard. He's, like, wearing a red robe. He tells you this, and this, and now you're in combat. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But then the first time I went to a table and the DM did a voice, I was like, we can do voices? This is acting? What? This is crazy. So just having that, just trying really adds a lot to the table. And nobody is going to sit there and be like, your voice sucks. And stop it. Nobody is ever going to say that. So don't worry about that. And then the other thing I'll recommend is I'm super bad with accents because I actually can't roll my R's. So a lot of accents are like not accessible to me. So what I'll do instead is I'll just play with my Canadian accent and like emphasize or de-emphasize things. Like I can talk a lot faster and that sounds like a lot different voice, or I can talk a little slower and lower and that also sounds like a different voice. So you can pull those levers instead of cultural levers, and that might be easier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say Natural 20, I think that's what his Instagram is. But nonetheless, he posts these tables, and I personally reference them all the time. But it's things like that, like your cadence of your voice, your pitch, your tone. Maybe talk with like your jaw cocked to one side, and you find that it like sounds different than when it's cocked the other side. It's these like small little things. You don't have to know any sort of like different dialects, but it's these little tips and tricks that you can do to make different unique voices. And he has like a table of like 100 of them. I'll make a reference to it whenever I post this up. But it's very helpful. I've used it several times.
That sounds sweet. Yeah, I like that.
So you did, Keith. You mentioned something you want to ask her about the Ed Greenwood thing that she did.
Yeah, had, it was more of a theatrical little story, wasn't it? So can you just talk about that, Ed Greenwood? I think a lot of people that's watching this show should know who he is.
Who's Ed Greenwood?
I'm not sure, honestly. People were coming after him and asking for his autograph, and I was like, who is this guy? But it was mostly a joke because we friends now. So yeah, yesterday I got to do this really cool thing. We got an opportunity to go to Port Hope, which is about a couple hours out of Toronto, and play in a game that was written and DM'd by Ed Greenwood. It was interesting, though, because it was like a public theater performance in a festival. So none of us were actually playing. It was like a D&D game without any of the rolling, and it was just scripted. But I got to be like a voice actor for body actors that were on the green, and they were like posing for like artists were watching and like drawing them as they posed, and while like we did voices and stuff. And there's going to be a comic book that comes out afterwards. And then we got super lucky because as we were leaving, Ed Greenwood was also leaving. And I was like, Ed, come have lunch with us. And he said yes, because he loves me. And awesome. That was a very interesting lunch. So the first time I met Ed was last week. They had a meet and greet for all of the people who were involved in the production. So we got to sit there, ask him a bunch of questions. It was super cool. We talked for like 2 hours about D&D. And then yesterday when we went to lunch, I was like, okay, it's going to be like another hour and a half talking about D&D. It wasn't. It was an hour and a half of Ed telling us the raunchiest stories from Gen Con, like in the 60s or like 70s or 80s or whatever it was. Stories of being alive in the 60s. And it was very, very raunchy, a lot of it. And I just loved it so much. Ed was such a cool guy to hang out with. He's so chill and like so very, very humble. He tried to buy lunch for all of us and was just like so happy that we asked him to come out to lunch. And I was like, Ed, you're a legend. Like, I am buying your lunch. Like, I am not letting you buy me lunch. And so it was really, really, really cool overall. I'm like still a little flabbergasted.
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous about that one. I would love to get to meet him one day and pick his brain about writing just in general.
Well,
I'm sure you will, Keith.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, he's like my best friend now. He's gonna send me a naked card on Christmas. So
that's awesome.
You know, that's like it's like a true relationship now. And
send that to us in our private chat.
So please. Everybody, now you know what Lily wants for Christmas.
Naked photos of Ed Greenwood, please and thank you.
Heart. That's awesome. So, Lily, what are your goals for the future? I mean, where's the direction of Just a Little Nerd? Where's all this going? I mean, if you could have it your way by the end of 2019, going into 2020, where would you be?
I would be in my living room holding a naked photo of Ed Greenwood. No, just kidding. I mean, like, not kidding. That is true. But wow, that's a big question. Specific goals. Man, I would love to be on a Geek and Sundry stream. Like, I would just like. It's a weird question because the end goal and the motivation sound very different. So like end goals, I would love to be on a mainstream stream as a D&D player or DM. And I want as many people to see me doing that as possible, which sounds really conceited and maybe a little snobby. But it is the truth. And the reason why I want to do that is just because like I am so all about adding more representation to this industry and this game because it brought so much to my life. And I know, like, not to discriminate against anybody, but I know so many women who have had their lives changed by D&D because it teaches women a lot of crucial things that are missing from the overall lifespan and education of women, like confidence, decision-making, like standing up for yourself, communication. Not that women don't know how to do that, but a lot of us aren't empowered to do it, honestly.
Right.
Patriarchy, it sucks. So the more that I can get more women playing D&D, especially queer women of color like me, that would be really freaking cool. So I think in my head that if I was on a mainstream stream and doing this really regularly and promoting it, like I just want to get more people in that mindset and knowing that this is an option for them that could be really healthy for them. So that's my end goal. And I would quantify that by being on a mainstream stream.
Yeah, and I think that's an outstanding goal. And I think that's one thing I love about Roll for Damage. And then over Cameron, who we spoke to, the Crit Chicks, is that you guys both play a good brand of D&D, how D&D is supposed to be played, and you show that, and you kind of bring that female element to it to show it's okay for them. Because like me growing up in the 80s and playing, I don't think I ever knew a girl growing up that played D&D. So to see it hitting that level with everybody from every background playing now, it's just incredible to see that. I love the growth of D&D and where it's headed. And it's people like you, Crit Chicks, all those that are helping bring it to that level.
Yeah. Lily, what would be your number one piece of advice for empowering women in whether it's D&D or in their everyday lives?
I think my number one advice for empowering anyone is communication. I think that's something that's really, really missing in the world as much as a lot of people know that they know how to do it. But like being able to identify what your needs and wants are as a person and then being able to honestly express that to whether it's your boss, your partner, your roommate, anyone in your life, you should be able to say, hey, something is happening that I don't feel comfortable with, and that's not a bad thing against you, and that's not a bad thing against me, but it is just something that is a fact and a reality, and we should talk about it. Like, I think learning how to do that has been the biggest change in my entire life. I think that's where a lot of my confidence come from. That's a lot of where my like good relationships come from, is just having that awareness and mindfulness and ability to put aside all of the drama and all of the like emotions that come with those conversations and just say like, look, this is what I need. This is what I want. And please help me with it, and working together to achieve that.
And the beautiful thing about that too is, coming from a personal standpoint, I've battled with depression and my brother committed suicide. It's whenever you voice those things and you find out that other people also deal with it too. It's not just you that's struggling with that. You find out like, hey, I actually have had the same thoughts, or I've had that same issue happen to me. And people start coming out of the woodwork, and you cultivate this environment that is open and flowing, and people are willing to talk about it, and then from that they get better.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the probably most empowering or like things that just made me feel really good about myself that I did was I have borderline personality disorder, and there was a day on my Instagram where I was just not feeling good and I was really struggling, and I posted all of it, and I just started answering questions about BPD because so many people messaged me. I had like probably like honestly 30 to 50 people message me being like, I also have BPD. I think I have BPD. I know somebody that I think has BPD. Can you please answer questions and educate me about this? And I did. And they were all just so grateful because it's like, wow, I've never met someone who could just like talk about this and not like get offended that you're being too personal or whatever. And I'm like, absolutely. Like I have no problem talking about my mental illness because I'm working on it, and it's just not something that I want to affect me in a negative way. I want it to affect me in a positive way that I can share back with the world and hopefully make it all a little bit of a better place. Just a little.
Just a little. Throw the TM on that.
Yeah, it already is. That's going to cost you 5 cents for saying it.
And it's, it is beautiful once you can start to tackle those issues together, and realize that you're not alone in facing those sorts of things. So I will personally say, keep doing what you're doing because, the impact that you have on others, you have no idea how far that goes. And every single little impression that you look at whenever you check the stats and you check the numbers on there, you may see like, oh, this is only 10,000. It's down from 25,000 that I had last week. Well, guess what? That's 10,000 people that you may have touched. And I guarantee there's somebody that saw that that's like, yeah, that helps.
Yeah. You too, Cameron. You too.
But this isn't about me. This is about you guys. So, all right. Keith, did you have another question that you wanted to ask Lily?
Not at the moment. I'm trying to think. I know I had a list.
There was something that one of you brought this up, and I have no idea what the heck you're talking about.
It may have been me.
Was it flumps? What the heck is it?
That was definitely her.
That was me.
So what the hell is flumps?
I kind of tacked it on at the end as a joke in my list of topics, but I love talking about flumps. They are the cutest D&D monster, in my opinion. They're like floating jellyfish things with like tentacle eyes, and they just like hover around in the air. They're kind of like the nice versions of mind flayers. We don't have to talk about flumps, but you should look up what flumps are because they're great.
I will do that afterwards. I apologize, Internet, for not knowing what a flump was.
That's okay.
So, Lily, I know it's getting late. I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. You seriously, I mean, you've really created a good community for yourself. And a lot of people look up to you and just keep doing what you're doing because you help a lot of people out there.
Today, Cameron said that I was an icon.
We'll do a Twitch highlight of that.
Wow, amazing. Thank you guys so much for having me here. Like, this has been really nice chatting about it, and I just love, again, connecting with more people in the community, and you guys have been some of the best, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lily, for coming on, and thank you for everything you do. I mean, the Roll for Damage, the Access Tavern, all that stuff, and we definitely wish you well in the future, and I'm sure you're going to do big things.
Yeah, and we'll be there to ride your coattails, so don't forget the people.
Yeah, I'm dragging as many people to the top as I can. Lucky, that means you.
Great. Well, if she doesn't beat you there, because, she's big stuff.
She is.
But we have some signature questions. Keith,
all right.
Go ahead and ask your signature cue.
I am first. So let's see, Lily. What is your favorite PC thus far in your D&D career?
Ooh, like ones that I played or ones that
you've actually played? Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. I feel like I should know. Oh, yes, I do know. Chang. Chang is my favorite. So Chang is a tiefling sorcerer, and Chang had a spy master background. So I just wrote into her story that she was just the most curious person ever. So she opens a lot of doors without asking. She's really annoying. Like she uses message constantly to tell her friends and ask them questions and tell them about all the things that she's seeing. And she has this very like, okay, hi, I'm Chen. Hey, is this message working? Is this on? Can you hear me? Oh, wait, can you tell me that thing that you saw last week that was blue? Can you describe that more? And it's just like an ongoing tirade of that forever. So I love her.
Your poor dungeon master.
Yeah. One time she opened a door. She ran ahead of her friends because she was really excited about all these doors, opened it, and there was a death slot on the other side, and it just like two-shot killed her. And it was amazing. And then she just woke up and she's like, whoa, did you guys see that thing? That was amazing. What color was its belly? I wasn't able to see it. So yeah,
That's
it was
beautiful.
a good moment. Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. If you could play Dungeon Dragons, either DM or play for them as the DM with anybody in history, past, present, maybe even future, who would it be?
One person.
One person. To have them as a player.
Aubrey
or
Plaza.
Who's that?
Aubrey Plaza.
Okay.
She's an actress. She was most popular in Parks and Rec. She was also in recently, like Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. She was the mom in Chucky.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Why her?
Yeah, I love her. I feel like she'd just be really fun to, mostly just because I want to meet her because I love her. But she would just be really fun. I feel like she has a lot of personality and sass, and she's a really badass chick. And I feel like we would be best friends. So Aubrey Plaza hit me. Now that I'm saying Aubrey Plaza, though, I'm also thinking of like the million other people that I really want to play with. So I'm just gonna rattle off some names and just break your question. I want to play with Joe Manganiello. I want to play with Paul Rudd. I would really want to play with Chris Pratt, Mila Kunis. Anna Kendrick would also be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think there's more, but like those are just off the top of my head, fired off.
On Anna Kendrick, I feel like I do not know her name, so I'm gonna go by the name that I know her as. Fat Amy, the girl that plays Fat Amy. What's her actual?
She was in that movie, but she wasn't Fat Amy. She was like the new kid with the red hair, the funky one.
What is her name? She would be hilarious.
The one who plays Fat Amy?
Yes.
Rebel Wilson. Yes, absolutely.
She would be great.
Player. Yeah.
I'm adding that to my list. So next time I'm out in LA, we'll get Joe Manganiello, Anna all those people. We'll get them out there. We'll have a good one shot. Hey, maybe next Gen Con. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Gary Con. We got to get him in a game.
Yeah. I actually just heard of another one called Gamehole Con that apparently I need to go to.
Where is that located?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, Madison. Okay.
Yeah, but apparently it's like 100% dedicated D&D convention, like only D&D.
Are you going to GaryCon?
Apparently.
Yeah.
I need to save someone from being petrified.
We'll show you more whenever we finally stream. I promise we'll do it soon. Just please bear with me and don't rip me to shreds, internet. So Lily, where can people find you?
In Toronto. A lot of people think that they can just find me in Toronto.
Or on the internet. We're out on the internet.
Oh yeah, on the internet. My Instagram is justalil.nerd. I'm running an 8K giveaway right now, so if you want to follow me, it might be a good time. Justalil.nerd, and if you want to see me on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/rollfordamage. That is damage with an extra E at the end, but it is pronounced damage, FYI.
Play on words.
And there's also my Axis Tavern. If you want to join the Axis Tavern, that is probably the place where I'm the most active in connecting and chatting with people. The link for that is bit.ly/join-tavern. Or just go to my Instagram page and there's links and it'll be a lot easier.
And what night does Roll for Damage stream on?
Oh, excellent question.
Yes.
On Tuesdays. We're kind of adjusting the times, but generally you'll find us there at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we also do a behind the scenes episode every week on Saturdays called Roll for Insight at around 3 p.m. Eastern.
Busy woman.
Yeah.
I am.
And Keith, of course, we all know where to find you, but where can we find you?
You can find me at fire.and.dice on Instagram, and I am also on Fire and Dice on YouTube, and I am a very gracious co-host to Cameron on the D&D Coalition podcast.
And I am Cameron, D&D Coalition on Instagram. I pretend to be on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Find me wherever. But guys, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, and I really can't wait to I can't wait to do the Cure for Scrag, but I can't wait to air our one shot that we did because it was a great time.
Are we allowed to release the name of that, or is it still a secret?
I think it's still a secret.
It's Keep of the Stone Maiden is the official name.
Or it's not a secret.
Or it's not a secret.
No, but there is a secret other name.
Keep of the Stone Maiden is the initial name, and we'll unveil the official name later.
Yes, shout out for Josh, who's one of the best DMs I ever had.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Good job.
But thanks, guys. We will be in touch, and thank you those who have watched, and hope you guys have a great evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Lily.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.